My friend suddenly announced that she had a boyfriend. The caption read, "I'm not good with words, I just want to see you in that moment." My Snapchat exploded. All of our mutual friends bombarded me with messages. "Charlotte, wasn't Gabriel supposed to be your boyfriend?" Before I could process what was happening, Gabriel sent me a message. "So, what do you think? Isn't my boyfriend handsome?" Each word felt like a knife stabbing my heart. My hands trembled so much that I could barely see the screen through my blurred vision. He must have gotten impatient waiting for a response because he sent another message. "My boyfriend knows we're close. I don't want him to get the wrong idea, so maybe it's better if you don't reach out to me for a while." I read the messages several times. Then, I threw my phone aside and collapsed in tears. For all these years, everyone knew I loved Gabriel, everyone except Gabriel himself. He always thought I was just his best friend, his family without blood ties. If we're talking about who knows Gabriel Silva best, I, Charlotte Mason, would say no one knows him better than I do. I know he likes egg pancakes without scallions, pasta with meat without cilantro, winter sweatshirts without hoods, and that his sneakers are slightly bigger than his regular shoe size. I took all his literature notes since we were kids, and when he started college, I was the one who bought him his first set of formal clothes. I used to pride myself on the space I occupied in Gabriel's life. I thought no one could leave as many marks on his life as I did. I thought we were just one small step away from being something more, an opportunity that would make everything fall into place naturally. But I never had that chance. Instead, I had to face the fact that Gabriel now had a boyfriend. He kept chatting endlessly on Snapchat, telling me how amazing the new boyfriend was, how surprisingly he liked scallions and cilantro, and now Gabriel liked them too because his boyfriend liked them. He shared pictures of the hoodie his boyfriend bought for him, saying he loved it so much he'd wear it every day. He even mentioned how cute it was that the boyfriend bought him sneakers that were too small for him. Every word seemed to erase my past. Finally, he sent me one last message. "Charlotte, my boyfriend said that if you bring us some condoms, he'll believe we're just friends. Hurry, bring them here." He even attached the address of a hotel. Gabriel's audacity with me was entirely my fault. Since childhood, I always gave him whatever he wanted. If he asked for the stars, I would have built a ladder to reach them. Even his mom used to say there was no one in the world as good to him as I was. It was precisely because I was so good to him that he took advantage of me. He saw me as a given. I wiped my tears and, indeed, went there. When I arrived, he was already impatient, waiting. As soon as he opened the door, he snatched the condoms from my hand and shot me a look of disdain. "Charlotte, what took you so long?" My boyfriend almost suspected me. He didn't even give me a chance to respond before slamming the door in my face. Before the door closed, I caught a glimpse of the guy. He was wrapped in a towel, with his hair loose and water droplets still running down his skin. I saw Gabriel eagerly going towards him, ready to embrace him. Tears streamed uncontrollably down my face. I didn't want to seem so pathetic in front of Gabriel, so I tried to cover my mouth, but I couldn't hold back a sob. Suddenly, I felt like a complete joke. I wiped my tears and tried to send a message in the calmest tone I could muster. "Gabriel, I won't bother you anymore." After sending it, I blocked him. Gabriel and I had known each other since we were kids. After more than 20 years, there were so many memories. Just the photos of us together took up more than 30 gigabytes on my phone. I deleted everything. Not only that, I also deleted all those silly photos we took together years ago from my social media. I decided that from today on, I wouldn't tie myself to Gabriel Silva anymore. The next day, after class, Gabriel cornered me. He looked at me exasperated, as if I was the irrational one in the situation. "Charlotte, what's your problem?" I admit that it's impossible to forget someone you've loved for so long overnight. Seeing him again, my heart. I pretended nothing was wrong and acted like I hadn't heard. He was clearly getting impatient. "You're making my boyfriend uncomfortable. He thinks it's his fault we're not talking." I looked at him, the bitter taste in my mouth, unable to say a word. I just quickened my pace to leave. Gabriel yelled after me, "Damn, Charlotte. Stop acting like this just because your friend is dating someone. My boyfriend is right. You're being possessive. Don't tell me you actually like me. I stopped in the middle of the street and turned to face him. Suddenly, I felt the urge to say everything. What if I say yes? Gabriel rubbed his fingers, clearly flustered by my response. I was just joking. I need to go. We'll talk later, okay? In the next 2 months, Gabriel didn't reach out to me, and I didn't reach out to him either. I knew he was getting serious with his boyfriend. They even signed up for a group trip during the summer vacation. My friends were outraged about it and messaged me to complain. Gabriel has no heart. How can he be so public about it? He doesn't care how much he's hurting you. I paused for a moment before replying. Let him, it'll get better slowly. As Gabriel flaunted his relationship, I cried silently with pain for several nights, but I forced myself not to think about it, not to ask anything. Later, I really stopped thinking about it and started focusing on my studies, keeping myself busy every day. Until one day, my roommate informed me that I had appeared on the university confessions page. The confession was simple. Charlotte Mason, second year of economics. I, Mason Carter, have decided that you are the right one for me. Well, to be honest, I thought it was a bit over the top. Who still uses such cliché and authoritative pickup lines these days? I didn't take it seriously, thinking it was just a joke. But what I didn't expect was for Mason Carter to actually start pursuing me with determination. Because of what had happened with Gabriel, I was extremely averse to the idea of dating, so I was very cold with him. But he never gave up. In fact, it seemed like with every rejection, he became more determined. At first, every time I left the library, there he was, waiting, always holding a cup of my favorite grape tea with cheese. He would hand it to me as soon as I walked out. At first, I refused to accept it, but he wasn't annoyed. He just smiled and said, Charlotte, I've already bought it. It would be a waste if you really don't want it. Why don't you transfer me the money? That's how he got my Snapchat contact. I thought giving out my contact might be problematic, but Mason was very considerate. He would only occasionally like or comment on my posts, rarely disturbing my life. Little by little, I got used to it. After a while, when I tried to transfer the money for the tea with milk, he refused again, giving a very reasonable explanation. Now we're so close. Offering you a tea with milk is the least I can do. Reading that message, I found myself lying on my bed, laughing uncontrollably. I never imagined this guy would be so good at winning someone over. He knew exactly how to handle the boundaries between men and women. I started enjoying interacting with him. After all, who doesn't like a good-looking guy who knows how to treat people well? As I got to know him better, I found out that Mason's score on the college entrance exam was more than 30 points above the cutoff for our university. I couldn't understand it. So why did he come here? He seemed a little embarrassed at first, scratching his head. Because the person I like is here. The atmosphere suddenly became a bit uncomfortable. He cleared his throat awkwardly. With 600 points, you don't seem like the type to write that kind of confession. This time, he blushed even more, his face quickly turning red. That confession was posted by my roommates. They were just joking. Mason was very handsome, more than just conventionally attractive. Growing up, the most beautiful person I'd ever seen was Gabriel, but looking closely, Mason didn't seem any less attractive than him. As I stared at him for a moment, I suddenly realized that I hadn't thought about Gabriel in quite some time. He really seemed to have disappeared from my life. Mason started occupying my time every day. He found new ways to please my preferences. I didn't like having breakfast in the cafeteria, so he would wake up 2 hours earlier to buy my breakfast at my favorite shop. It wasn't just for me. My roommates also benefited. Every time he brought something to the dorm, he would bring a portion for them too, making sure everyone got something, while mine was always the best. If I posted something on social media in the morning saying I wanted to go out in the afternoon, he was already dressed and ready to take me for a walk around the area. When I casually mentioned wanting to eat a strawberry cake that evening, I received a strawberry cake that he bought. It had the logo of the rice shop from the Sioux family. That shop was close to my house. I looked at him, surprised. When did you go buy this? Mason seemed a little embarrassed, still catching his breath. That's when I saw your post. I was playing ball with my friends in the afternoon and saw it a bit late. I almost didn't make it in time. This shop has always been popular. It's been there since I was little. But the owner was someone who really knew how to live well. Without fail, he would close the shop every day at 5 p.m., no matter if there were still customers or not. I knew this because I'd passed by that shop countless times, but had never bought anything. The prices were about a third higher than in other places. Even my mom only bought me something there once a year, on my birthday. I could never afford it, but I always wished for it. Every time Gabriel saw me looking at the shop, he would mess up my hair and comfort me like a child. "Don't look anymore, little one. Gabriel will buy you one next time." But year after year, I waited, and it never happened. There was always an excuse. He'd spent all his allowance, or didn't have time to buy it, and so on. Back then, I believed him. Now, looking at the small 15-centimeter strawberry cake in Mason's hands, I suddenly felt tears well up in my eyes. So, if someone really wanted to buy it, it only took 2 hours. When I looked at the strawberry cake in Mason's hands, something inside me finally broke. It wasn't anger at him, but at everything I had tolerated for years. All the empty promises, the flimsy excuses, the way Gabriel always made me feel less important, as if my dedication was his right, not a privilege. And now, there was Mason, sweaty, tired, but smiling, holding something that seemed small to him but, to me, was proof that I never asked for too much. I just wanted to be seen, to be valued. I thanked Mason for the cake, but he noticed the cold tone in my voice, the distant look in my eyes. "Are you okay, Charlotte?" he asked, concerned. I forced a smile, but it wasn't convincing. I knew I couldn't unload everything on him. He didn't deserve that. I said I was just tired and needed some time alone. Mason, of course, respected that as he always did and left, saying he'd be around if I needed anything. Once I was alone, I sat on the bed and stared at the cake. How could something so small hurt so much? It wasn't just the cake, it was the symbolism. It was proof that, for years, I had been a fool. Gabriel knew I loved him, of course, he knew. It wasn't something I hid. Well, he had taken advantage of it. Not in an obvious way, but in a subtly manipulative one. He knew exactly how to keep me close, how to feed my hope without ever giving me anything in return. I ran my hands over my face, feeling the tears run down before I even realized I was crying. I knew I shouldn't think about him anymore, that I needed to move on. But how? How could I forget all those years? All those times when he made me feel special, only to later remind me that I wasn't. Without realizing it, I grabbed my phone and opened our old conversations. There they were, all his messages, every kind word, every request, every apology. It was like reading the story of someone who never really existed, a version of Gabriel that I had invented in my head. Before I could change my mind, I selected everything and deleted it. That night, I decided I needed to face Gabriel one last time. I knew he was back in town because of a social media post. He was with his boyfriend, of course, flaunting that perfect relationship as he always did. I sent a short message. "We need to talk, just you and me." It took him a little while to respond, but he eventually agreed. We arranged to meet at a cafe downtown. When I arrived, he was already there, with that same confident smile, as if nothing had happened. "Charlotte, what a surprise. I thought you'd never want to see me again," he said, laughing as if we were old friends. I sat down, crossing my arms. "I won't take much of your time, I just need to say a few things." He raised his eyebrows, but still seemed relaxed, as if nothing I said could affect him. "Listen, Gabriel, I loved you for years. You knew it, everyone knew it. But what you did to me was cruel. You took advantage of the fact that I would do anything for you. All those promises you never kept, all those moments when you used me as your safe haven, never seeing me as anything more than a plan B." He opened his mouth to respond, but I raised my hand to interrupt him. "No, now it's my turn to speak. I spent years blaming myself, thinking that maybe I wasn't good enough, that maybe the problem was me. But it wasn't the problem. It was you. You never valued me because you knew I would always be there. But guess what? I won't be anymore. For a moment, he seemed lost, maybe even regretful. Charlotte, I never wanted to hurt you. I didn't know how to handle it. You're important to me, but not enough. I finished with a bitter smile. It's okay, Gabriel. I don't need to be enough for you. I just need to be enough for myself. I stood up before he could say anything else and left the cafe, feeling a mix of relief and sadness. It was like I had finally lifted a weight off my shoulders, but at the same time, I was painfully aware that this weight had been part of me for so long that I didn't know who I was without it. Mason was still around. He kept trying, even when I was cold, even when it seemed hopeless. And for the first time, I began to wonder if maybe I should give him a chance, not just to him, but to myself, a chance to be happy, to be loved by someone who truly cared. I knew the road wouldn't be easy. There were still so many memories to overcome, so many wounds to heal. But that night, as I looked at the small, untouched strawberry cake on the table, I made a promise to myself. I would never let anyone treat me the way Gabriel had. I deserved more, and for the first time in years, I believed it. After that conversation with Gabriel, I felt as if I had closed an important chapter of my life. I thought confronting him would be the end of the cycle. But it was only the beginning. For the first time, the anger and resentment I had been carrying transformed into determination. It wasn't enough to just leave Gabriel behind. I needed to rebuild my life from scratch, on my own terms. I started by focusing on myself. I immersed myself in my studies and applied for a competitive internship. To my surprise, I got the position. Things finally started to fall into place, and Mason was by my side every step of the way. He didn't pressure me or demand anything, but his constant and gentle presence provided a comfort I had never felt before. As my life progressed, I began hearing more about Gabriel through mutual friends. He and his boyfriend continued living their eternal honeymoon on social media, but the rumors told another story. Gabriel's manipulative tendencies hadn't changed and were now directed at his partner. It didn't take long before vague posts about fights and misunderstandings started popping up. It was clear their relationship was falling apart. One day, months later, I received something unexpected. A message from Gabriel. It wasn't long, just a timid attempt to rekindle our friendship. I completely ignored it. I knew he was only reaching out because his relationship was falling apart, but I wasn't the girl he could use as an emotional crutch anymore. Meanwhile, Mason continued to be the amazing person he had always been. Over time, I realized I was ready to open my heart again. When I finally agreed to go on a date with him, Mason made sure to make it special. He took me to a quiet place where we could talk about everything. For the first time, I felt like I was with someone who truly saw me. In the following months, our relationship blossomed. Mason didn't just treat me well, he encouraged me to grow. He was my biggest supporter when I decided to apply to a bigger university to finish my degree. I spent months preparing, and when the acceptance letter arrived, he was the first to celebrate with me. As my life moved forward, I heard more news about Gabriel. He had broken up with his boyfriend, and the breakup had been disastrous. Rumors of cheating and lies circulated, and he was alone, isolated from many of the friends who had once surrounded him. Although I didn't feel sorry for him, I didn't feel satisfied either. He made his choices, just as I made mine. Mason and I moved in together when I began my new academic journey. It was a fresh start in every sense. We became partners, not only in love but in life. He helped me face the challenges of university, and I encouraged him to pursue his own dreams. In my final year of college, I received another unexpected message from Gabriel. It was long, filled with apologies and regrets. He admitted he had been selfish, that he had used me, and that now he understood what he had lost. For the first time, he seemed sincere, but I didn't need that validation. My response was brief. I forgive you, Gabriel, but there is no space for you in my life. I hope you find peace. I sent the message and immediately blocked him. I didn't want to prolong the contact or allow him to be part of my story again. I had already moved on. Years later, my life was completely transformed. Mason and I got married in an intimate ceremony, surrounded by the people who truly mattered. I built a solid career, and he also achieved great success. We became the kind of partnership I never thought was possible. As for Gabriel, I heard that he remained stuck in destructive cycles. He never learned to value anyone but himself, and it seemed to make him more isolated every year. In the end, my greatest revenge was my happiness. I didn't need to do anything to destroy Gabriel. He took care of that himself. My success, my peace, and my ability to leave the past behind were the true triumph. Looking back, I now see that everything I went through made me stronger and more aware of what I deserve. My life isn't perfect, but it's genuine, built on choices I made for myself, not to please or depend on someone else. And that, for me, is the greatest victory.